Hello and welcome to S109, Operational Contract Support. Do you notice anything funny about the photo in this picture? Do you think the unit got what they asked for? Please note the key takeaways for this lesson. Much of the content of this lesson comes from JP 4-10 and ATP 4-71, as well as your course readings. The U.S. Army Materiel Command provides significant support to deployed operating force units primarily through its TO&E organizations, which include Contracting Support Brigades, or CSBs. Army Contracting Command executes system support, external support, and theater support contracting to deployed Army forces through its subordinate commands. The MIC is a subordinate command within ACC that provides installation and power projection support to the Strategic Support Area, Installation Management Command, or IMCOM, and the AFSB Logistics Readiness Centers. The CSB is typically allocated to a Theater Army, Field Army, and Army Corps. There are two Corps-aligned CSBs that are attached to the MIC and not deployed. Contracting battalions are primarily aligned to divisions and exercise C2 over their organic units. These battalions are often aligned with the TSC or ESC. Contracting teams or detachments may provide direct support to individual maneuver brigade combat teams, particularly in early operational phases. Condets are often aligned with sustainment brigades. Here are some of the key terms that you should know as it applies to operational contract support. A contract is a legally binding agreement between the government and the contractor. A defense contractor is the individual or organization that enters into a contract with the government. The KO is the government official with the legal authority to write, administer, and terminate contracts for the government. The three main types of contracting officers are procuring contracting officers, or PCOs, administrative contracting officers, or ACOs, and termination contracting officers, or TCOs. Contracting officers' representatives are typically U.S. service members who are trained to monitor contract performance. The Quality Assurance Surveillance Plan, or QASP, is the document used to assess contractor performance. CORs must be nominated by the commander and appointed by the KO. OCS is the process of planning for and obtaining supplies, services, and construction from commercial sources in support of joint operations. While varying in scope and scale, OCS is a critical force multiplier across all phases and types of operations. Sustainment commanders and staffs need to be able to plan for, integrate, execute, and manage contracts and contractor personnel within the OE. In our doctrine, we have three subfunctions to OCS. They are contract support integration, contracting support, and contractor management. Most of this class focuses on contractor management, but we will talk about other aspects of these subordinate functions as well. OCS planning and execution require a programmatic approach on behalf of the Joint Force Commander and supporting combatant commands, service components, CSAs, and their associated contracting organizations. In addition to this singular overarching OCS principle, the following principles are key to understanding the potential opportunities and challenges of OCS. Take some time to review this slide. Notice that contracted support is not just about logistics. It can include a variety of non-logistic support as well. It is important to understand the different types of contracted support used in support of combatant commander directed operations. This construct breaks support contracts into three categories describing the numerous contracting, funding and contract administration authorities providing support within the operational area. Theater support contracts are those that provide goods, services, and minor construction, usually from local vendors, to meet the requirements of deployed units. System support contracts are prearranged contracts typically awarded by Program Executive Officers, or PEOs. These contracts provide specific support for Army systems during their life cycle. External support contracts provide both logistics support and non-logistics support to deployed units. This might include transportation, base operating support, or even physical security. Sorry, this is another busy slide. It is important to know the basic contract types. Firm fixed-price contracts are usually preferred by the government because the contractor assumes the risk, and issues with performance do not affect cost to the government, especially if the contractor underestimates labor and material costs. Cost reimbursement contracts place risk on the government. We use these contracts when our requirements cannot be sufficiently defined. The contractor bills us for costs they incur to perform the contract. Time and material contracts are based on negotiated rates for labor and materials. These contracts are used when we cannot determine the extent or duration of the work required. This is kind of like the situation you face when hiring a plumber or electrician to do some work at your house. IDIQ contracts are used when the government cannot predetermine the precise quantity of supplies or services required. This contract may be appropriate when recurring needs are anticipated. The government places delivery orders for supplies and task orders for services against a basic contract for individual requirements. An IDIQ is similar to the blanket purchase agreement that perhaps an installation might have in place for things like copier paper. Sorry, this is another busy slide. Legal jurisdiction over contractor personnel varies depending on contractor personnel nationality, CAF or non-CAF designations, operational specific policies, and the type and severity of the disciplinary infraction. CAF stands for Civilians Authorized to Accompany the Force. They have certain rights and privileges as defined in their LOA, or Letter of Authorization. Normally, local national contract employees are subject to local laws, while U.S. citizens and third country national, or TCN CAF, may or may not be subject to local laws depending on provisions, if documented, in existing SOFAs, that's Status of Forces Agreements, or other security agreements. CAF, with some exceptions, are subject to U.S. federal law to include UCMJ jurisdiction. While many CAF discipline infractions are normally handled by the contractor, serious CAF discipline infractions can be and should be addressed through military legal and/or Department of Justice channels. To the extent commanders determine disciplinary actions may be necessary for CAF, they should first coordinate their actions with their SJA or the Government Contract Oversight Team. Contractors are prohibited from doing things that are considered to be inherently governmental. They cannot supervise government employees. They cannot communicate with Congress on behalf of the Department of Defense or the Army. They cannot obligate government resources. If a contractor needs to purchase supplies, for example, this must be written into the contract. Most importantly, a contractor cannot perform military functions and engage in kinetic operations. Now, they have a right to self-defense, but this does not extend to engaging in combat. Earlier, I mentioned that contractor management is one of the three subfunctions of OCS. Contractor management is the oversight and integration of contractor personnel and associated equipment in support of military operations. The 5 phases of CMP, in many ways, more or less mimics the same processes that soldiers and units follow with respect to deployment and redeployment. So in the planning phase, the focus is placed on risk management and the impact of contractors on the battlefield. In Phase 2, pre-deployment preparation actions must be taken by the government to ensure that contractors meet combatant commander requirements. This is much like pre-deployment processing that MTO units go through. Of particular importance is the Letter of Authorization, or LOA. This document, issued by a PCO, or designee, authorizes the contractor to travel to, from, and within an operational area. It also outlines the terms and conditions of the contract. In Phase 3, deployment and reception, contractors and their equipment are received in theater. This is similar to the manner in which units go through with respect to RSO&I. In-theater management includes not only the monitoring of performance by CORs, or contracting officer representatives, but the accountability and force protection of contractors. Phase 5, redeployment, involves the movement of contractors and their equipment out of the operational area upon completion of their period of performance. SPOT-ES is an automated system that provides theater-wide visibility of contractors in one common system. CORs are required to maintain by-name accountability of contractors using SPOT. Here are some parting thoughts. OCS is a unit responsibility. You need to include OCS into your plans from the beginning. This begins with articulating your requirements. The commander must carefully select the CORs he or she nominates and make sure that they are fully trained. A commander must also understand his or her right or left limits. Contractors are not soldiers. Be aware of what they can and cannot be done to them legally to enforce good order and discipline. As I said before, articulating your requirements clearly is very important to establish right up front. Defense contractors are not subject to mission command and do not understand the commander's intent. So when you define your requirements, make sure to spell check.